Hi, my name's Trev from Rock and Sun. In this video, we're going to take you through our falling practice routine, which we call landing practice. The reason we call it landing practice is because that's the bit we're really interested in. The reason that we're doing this is because we're finding a greater percentage of people coming on our holidays or courses either don't have a reliable procedure for landing or and assessing the landing, or worse, they've been given poor or even incorrect advice, which may lead to a more serious injury than necessary if things don't go well. So, what we've started doing is ensuring that anyone that wants to be leading rather than top roping at least goes through the minimum amount of landing practice so that in the event of a fall while leading, they're less likely to sustain an injury. So we're not really looking at the psychological benefit of practicing falling to get more used to the idea, but of course that goes with the process as well. What we're really interested in is just making sure that people have just the minimum amount of information and skill to assess the landing and to land as safe as possible in a fall. We'll also make sure that when we're doing this, we're doing it in arid terrain. So we're not just going to a steep piece of cliff and jumping off and not really having to think about anything else other than letting gravity do its job. The first few stages of fall practice is done on top rope. So what we think we've managed to do is to develop something that A is effective, but B relatively safe. So as safe as possible, allowing people to fall with the safety net of having a top rope on and practice landing so that in the event of a fall while leading, you're just more likely to react in the right way and make the landing. So we're just going to take you through the process. I'm just going to start by showing a selection of falls and landings, just so there's some context as to why we have the approach that we do when we look at how to fall correctly and how to make the landings. What you'll notice in many of them is that the climber is falling upside down, and you'll also notice that in many of the falls, the climber isn't making any attempt to hold the rope below the knot. So obviously you'll see when the climber flips upside down, if they're holding the rope, it will be the fleshy part of their body, the backside, that might make contact with the rock, but there's certainly then protecting the head and the back from injury if they're holding the rope. Not guarantee you'll be able to keep hold of it, but you can see in some of the falls the climber attempting to grab the rope, or what happens when they grab it, it serves to keep their body in an upright position. So a whole number of reasons why you might go upside down holding a heavy rock, or your feet touching the rock first and then your body keeps traveling. Could also happen if the rope's behind your leg, of course. So it's important to think about protecting the more delicate parts of the body by holding the rope. And then obviously we're looking at having your feet shoulder width at least apart for stability in the landing, and then obviously bending the knees well to turn your legs into shock absorbers, so you're reducing the impact in the landing. By looking at the physics of what happens when we're falling and landing, we can then start to build a picture of what we should be priming ourselves to do to greater guarantee that the landing will be as comfortable as we can possibly make it. So, a good reaction would be to push our upper body away from the rock, just straighten our arms, reach down to the rope, hold that to stop us flipping upside down completely in the fall. And then we want to have our knees slightly bent, so we've got the maximum amount of shock absorbency when we land the fall, so that we can keep traveling in the direction we're moving, and ideally not putting our hands out to brace ourselves, because what we want to do is let our legs, which are the less delicate part of our body, and our feet take the force of the landing rather than our more delicate parts of our body like our hands or our arms. What we begin with is just allowing the climber to experience going upside down. So have them holding the rope above their heads with the arms nice and straight, lower them down until they're in an upside down position, and just to demonstrate how holding the rope below the knot in a fall will allow you to protect your head and your back from injury, and you're going to sort of fall in onto your backside maybe, but you're actually going to protect your head and your back by holding the rope. And then what you can do is fix it by gradually moving bit by bit your feet together nice and straight above you, and a little bit at a time to the side, and eventually they'll counterbalance and you'll be able to push yourself back up with your hand. So important to know how to fix going upside down if you do. So once we've established the importance of holding the rope in a fall, the right part of the rope, then we start the process of just bouncing in and out to practice landing. So what we're trying to do is get the timing right so that we're practicing landing on the rock with slightly bent knees, feet wide apart, and exaggerating maybe the bending of the knees using the legs as shock absorbers. And then from that, just the straight out and in landings, we'll start running backwards and forwards a little bit, sort of sideways along the cliff, just practicing what happens if we fall off in a pendulum. So when we fall sideways, we need to know that, very much like when you stop yourself tripping over on the floor, your feet need to move quickly. So nice short steps and fast, so that your feet keep up with your upper body. If your upper body gets ahead, you might spin sideways and then sort of swing into the rock maybe with your shoulder, or be tempted to put your hand out to brace yourself. So this idea of nice quick short steps with soft bent knees allows us to prepare and prime our bodies for what happens if we're falling sideways. So if we fall out to the left or right of the bolt, we'll fall down, and eventually the rope will start swinging us sideways. We need to be prepared to run into the fall and try and keep going in the direction we're going, rather than trying to stop ourselves. So most people find this quite good fun, just swinging around on a rope, but it is practically very useful just to get ourselves ready to react in the right way in a fall. So again, holding the rope, maybe pushing out and bouncing and jumping in a bit every now and again, just to vary what we're doing. But again, it's just about preparing ourselves for all sorts of landings that we might have to make, or falls that we might have to experience when we're climbing. And then we move into what we call touch and let go. So we're still on top rope. We're going to climb up to each bolt in turn, touch the bolt or the quick draw, and then jump off. So these falls are not as close physically to a real fall as clip and let go is, but this is a much safer way of just allowing the climber to fall off, push away, give themselves a bit of time to get their feet up, practice landing in on the soles of the feet and bending the knees. So it's relatively safe, non-intimidating way of getting used to landing in, again, as you can see here, quite varied terrain. We'll keep going until the climber is comfortable with the process, and it could well be that some people might just need to do a few of these on top rope after the previous phase, which obviously going upside down, and then the bouncing in and out, and then the sideways pendulum sort of practice falls, swinging. And then once that's been done, when we're doing now touch and let go, this would really be the minimum that we require people to do. Of course, there's the next stage, which is clip and let go, but we'd often maybe stop at this stage, just allow people to give themselves a good chance of reacting the right way in the fall by practicing these landings in a safe top rope scenario. And then, as you can see here, the climber is critiquing their landing. And every time you climb up, touch and jump off, you want to critique your landing, look at what you didn't do so well, and maybe focus on that in the next one. So obviously you're looking at things like, did we manage to grab hold of the rope with both hands? Did we get our feet up and land on the balls of our feet rather than our toes? Were our feet wider than sort of our body, sort of around shoulder width apart? And did we land with soft knees, so slightly bent knees, so we've got the maximum amount of shock absorbency to cushion the fall in the landing? What we might then move on to is a little bit of thinking about psychology of the falls and the landings as well. So one thing we often use once people have been comfortable with this stage is just getting people to, again, top rope falls, but then not holding the rope. And the reason for that is you can see more easily if the body is relaxed in the falls and the landings. So by holding the rope, of course, you're more tense. So we establish firstly that the importance of holding the rope, then we might move into not holding the rope, just to allow the climber to demonstrate they're becoming more relaxed. So when they're not physically tensing up when they're having to grab the rope, so arm is nice and loose and floppy down to the sides. But this is only used as a way of focusing more on being relaxed in the landings themselves and the falls and the landing themselves, rather than as a realistic reaction when someone's taking a real fall. We've already established the importance of holding the rope in the landing so that we prevent the opportunity for us to go upside down. So the next stage in the process is clip and let go. Not necessary for everyone to do this. We're more than happy if people just stop at the touch and let go. So having done the top rope falls and the practice landings and then the climb up, touch and let go. If you move on to the clip and let go, I think it is useful for your climbing in that the physics of the fall and the landing are very much more similar to a real fall. If you can move on to this stage under supervision, it should be able to come away with the confidence that you can, incorporate this as part of your climbing warm up. So you might just do 2 or 3 falls on one of your warm up routes. So it might only add 5 or 10 minutes to your warm-up process, so it doesn't take a lot of time, but it is essential to keep practicing the falling and the landings in particular. What we also do with this stage is start really getting people used to what they need to do when there's a soft catch involved. So the soft catch is being the belay should be timing moving forward just as the climber's weight lands on the harness. So me being quite heavy, if I'm belaying someone light, I'll have to even like jump or run forwards. Someone that might be heavier than you can get away with just obviously having that good belaying position, one foot in front of the other, and just step into the fall, and that'll be enough for the energy that the falling climber is providing to pull you forwards and give that soft catch. So that's something else that it's nice to get some practice doing, is holding some falls and understanding how you want to react depending on the weight of the climber that you're belaying. So what you'll see here in some of these falls is the climber falling, landing, and then there'll be a secondary fall where the belayer is getting pulled forwards or moving forwards, and then the climber's body is going to continue to go down, so they need to keep moving their feet, otherwise they can over rotate. So if the feet just plant in the landing, the body's still moving because it's hanging on the rope, and if the belayer is being pulled forwards, then of course the rope is allowing the climber's body to keep going down, so it means the feet need to keep traveling down the cliff, and it could either be jumping or running backwards down the cliff to make sure that you don't over rotate and end up in an upside down position. So here you'll probably see the belayer coming into view as they jump or run forward as the climber's weight comes onto the harness. The important thing to remember about this whole process, of course, is that it's about practicing the landings more than the physics of the falling. It's good to be able to accurately assess the falls and the landings, but this doesn't really kind of completely take away the fear of falling. But what it can do is give you the confidence that you can manage landing in a variety of different terrains. But over time, if you practice this enough, what will happen is the landing process will just be automated. So when you fall, your body will just react in the way that you've primed it to do. And that's where the safety comes in. It doesn't really matter what the terrain and what the fall is like, pretty much it's the same reaction. It's taking the rope down in front of you where you would not naturally take it to clip. It's bringing the feet up so you can land on the balls of your feet, having your feet shoulder width apart, and then bending your knees into the landing to have that shock absorbency. And then the rope stretching, the belayer moving, all those things add to the amount of shock absorbency that you're going to get in the landing. So it's really very much like just doing an emergency stop in a car. You practice something, when you suddenly have to stop the car quickly, you don't really have to think about it, you just go into automatic mode. And that's the thing, it gives you the confidence then that if you fall off unexpectedly, you are going to react in the right way. The important takeaway is that you need to practice regularly, otherwise you won't develop the skill and the confidence, and whatever overcoming of the fear that you've gained will eventually, over time, it will wane. So this is something that's easy to do, relatively safe, and then you can need to do this regularly so that the fear and the apprehension doesn't build up again, but also you're building up the skill level of managing the landings. And this is a vital part of the exercise. If we're able to make an accurate assessment of the physics of the fall and the landing, then we can have greater degree of confidence that the fall or the landing isn't going to result in an injury, and then the whole act of climbing can become a much more enjoyable experience for us. In this fall, you'll notice that the falling climber lands fairly close to the other Rock and Sun instructor climbing up. And then there's a little bit of dialogue, and clearly the falling climber maybe was concerned that they may go close to the climber, and me as the belayer is totally aware that that's not going to happen, and also the other instructor is totally aware that that's not going to happen, and it's understanding the reality of what will happen rather than what your imagination might be telling you is going to happen. If you find this video useful, please head over to our YouTube channel to check out the other videos that we have on climbing technique and safety. Also, we'll include a link in the description below so that you can look at the articles that we have on our blog page on the website at rockandsun.com.